All right, so welcome to the video, guys. Today we're going to watch Being Productive is Easy Actually by the YouTube channel Easy Actually. Now, I saw this on my feed and the title stuck with me, Being Productive is Easy, because it is easy. People just overcomplicate it. I like his thumbnails, this like stick figure, simplistic style of thumbnails. So I figured, you know what, we'll check it out. Perhaps I agree. Maybe I'll disagree, but either way, I think we'll all learn something here. So yeah, let's jump into this. By the way, if you're new to my channel, my name is Lenny Richardson. I'm the owner and founder of Productivity Accelerator, a company that helps young, busy professionals get more done in less time with scientifically proven hacks to maximize your productivity. I'm also an author, a former podcast host, and the top productivity trainer in Northern Virginia. Now, with all that being said, let's get into the video and see what Easy Actually has to say.
Ready? In South Korea, there are thousands of teenagers who wake up every day and spend more hours doing schoolwork than you spend being awake.
18
literally.
hours.
And many people look at these students and think, wow, they must have a crazy high amount of discipline and motivation and focus. But in reality, most of them just want to get out of school and join an esports team. A good portion of them don't even shower at all. And the most popular productivity hack is to drink an entire iced Americano in between each subject. So how do they do it? What's their hidden secret to being so productive all the time? It's actually very easy.
Before he gets into his ad, we're going to skip the ad, but I do want to say this. I mentioned this a lot in different videos. People confuse what productivity is. People think that there's actually two things I want to bring up. One, people confuse what productivity is. People think that being productive is simply being busy. They think if I'm doing stuff 24/7, I must be productive. And that's incorrect. The reason why it's incorrect leads to my second point. People confuse hours in. They confuse volume with output. Does that make sense? They think if I put more hours in to something, that correlates to what I'm going to get out of something. And that's not necessarily true. I like to think of productivity a lot like building muscle. If you're a beginner and if you do not understand like the principles of building muscle, you might think that the more I train, the bigger my muscles will get. And to some extent, that can be true in some instances, in some circumstances. You might think that if I go to the gym 7 days a week, for 5 hours a day, I'm going to get huge like Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's not true. More likely, if you're someone who goes to the gym that frequently and gives yourself no time to rest and recover, you're going to break down your muscles so much where you're going to get injured. And when you're injured, you obviously cannot train, so you're going to lose progress if you even made progress, and that'll ultimately destroy your chances of achieving whatever fitness goal you may have had. The same is true with productivity. People think, oh, if I'm just productive all day, if I wake up at 5 a.m. and if I grind until 12 a.m. the next day, that is productivity. It's incorrect. There's 24 hours in the day. The people who are the most productive, the people who get the most results, are not working that much. I'm not saying they aren't working much. I'm not saying they don't work hard. But I am saying that they don't necessarily correlate the amount of hours they put in to the amount of product that they produce, the amount of results that they get. You can work several hours a day and get more output than someone that works 15 hours a day. The thing to keep in mind is that the hours in is not important. What does matter is the quality of the work. It's quality versus quantity. People confuse that.
And here's 3 things I learned. Instead of always forcing yourself to work, find a way to enjoy it. Simply grinding away at work will cause you to burn out, and taking breaks is not a waste of time. It actually makes you more productive. And that's why I only upload once a month. But unlike me, short form drops new book guides and articles.
All right, so he's still in the ad, but I do want to bring that. I did want to interrupt that because that's valid. That's 100% true. Like I mentioned, people think that hours in equals output. So people will say, oh, you're resting. You're not being productive. You're not working hard if you're resting. When in reality, resting could be the key to you being more productive. If you're trying to be productive too consistently, you'll burn yourself out, which is effectively like a mental injury. That's effectively what burnout is. Much like if you work out too much, you might break your muscles too much where they can't actually perform. If you use your brain too much, you can hurt your brain in the form of burnout to the point where you can't produce work. You can't be productive anymore, which doesn't help you. I made a video about this recently, I think a week or so ago, talking about how I use video games to help me be more productive. And it's not really always video games. This can apply to any fun activity. Currently, I'm creating my own manga. So I use that now to kind of boost my productivity. But overall, what the objective is to link the primary work with the fun stuff. So in your mind, you want to do the fun stuff. You give yourself the fun stuff after you've done the main stuff. And the main stuff might not be fun. It might be a bit of a grind, but it needs to be done. But once you do that, you immediately reward yourself with the fun stuff. And what this does is it creates a positive feedback loop in your brain. Whenever you need to work, you'll eventually start to correlate the work with the fun. You think to yourself, oh, I have to make a YouTube video today. Well, the good thing is if I have to make a YouTube video today, that means that I'll be rewarded by video games or making a comic book or reading or sports, whatever it is that fun activity is for you, or even that restful activity is for you. If you keep linking it to the work, they'll start to kind of combine in your brain, if that makes sense. Like the hit you get from the fun will be the hit you get from the work. So that's the strategy that I typically recommend. If you want to learn more about it, like I said, watch that video where I talked about how video games can make you more productive. I'll leave a link below, and I'll put the thumbnail up so you know which video it is. But yeah, he might bring that up more in this video, but I kind of wanted to bring that up here while it was on my mind, just in case he didn't get to it.
And this is what it looks like. First, let's say you get motivated. Motivation makes you want to do work. Finishing some work makes you feel good, and that gives you motivation to then finish more work. Around and around it goes. The more motivated you are, the more work you do. And the more work you do...
Okay, he got to it. I don't know if he was actually going to get to it, but he got to it. And this is literally a perfect illustration of what I said about the positive feedback loop. You work, you do something fun. Because you did something fun, the two are linked. And now you want to work more, so that way you can reward yourself with the fun thing. They become intrinsically linked. And it becomes this positive feedback loop, this endless cycle of you wanting to work, which is good for you because it gives you the thing that you need in the long term. It lets you move towards your goal while also rewarding you by giving you the fun simultaneously. So it's a double whammy. You need to do this.
Motivation you get. So every time you think of productivity, just think of this cycle. Because even though it's a lot of stuff, it's easy to remember just this image whenever you wake up and don't feel like doing anything. And it explains pretty much everything. For example, how can you spend 3 weeks not writing an essay, but somehow 30 minutes before it's due, you turn into prime Shakespeare? It's because when the due date is in 30 minutes, your motivation goes sky high, and therefore the cycle goes much faster, and no amount of distractions, sleepiness, or boredom will be enough to stop you. The cycle also explains why you can get so much more work done when you have a to-do list. Because each time you cross something off the list, you're very obviously telling your brain, I finished something, I did a task. And that makes you feel good. And now that you feel motivated, guess what? Here's another task that's going to give you an even better feeling once you cross it off. And that's why the most productive people almost always have a detailed to-do list. Because if you split up a big task like homework into each individual subject, and even better, you split it into each individual task, then not only is there less confusion about what you have to do, but you get to have that boost in motivation after crossing off every little task. And it's important to know that if you don't have a lot of motivation, you can still start up the cycle.
Sorry, I want to pause again real quick. Great tip right there to break things down into what I call micro tasks. If you have a goal, break the goal down into the steps that lead you to accomplish the goal to the best of your ability. Personally, these days, because of AI, you can ask AI what likely steps will lead to you accomplishing the goal. You can ask it to give you steps based on what other people before you have done to achieve whatever goal you have, or maybe a similar goal to what they've achieved. And then from there, take those tasks down and then break those down even further into micro tasks. And the micro tasks are the little things you do daily that overall lead to you completing the big task, which overall lead to you completing the overall goal. A lot of people get stuck at that second level. They might know the tasks. For example, you want to work out, you want to become bigger, you want to get in better shape. You might understand, I need to work out 4 days a week. I need to diet. You might understand those two big tasks, but the problem is you don't know how to diet. You don't know exactly what your diet should look like, and you might not know what your routine should look like over a 7-day period, or if you want to go 4 times a week over a 4-day span of days. Again, use AI to kind of get an idea of what those micro tasks can be. There's a good tool, and I'm off the top of my head, I might be misstating it. I'll leave it down in the description below. I think it's called like Goblin Tools. I think that's what it is. Pretty much, if you have a goal, you can plug it into Goblin Tools, and it's very good at dissecting a big goal into very, very tiny micro tasks. To some extent, it can be a bit overwhelming because it might give you like a huge page of stuff for like one goal. I don't. You can prompt it to kind of hyper segment your micro tasks or like semi segment your micro tasks. I don't recommend like hyper segmenting it unless you're someone who really needs to know every tiny detail of what you need to be doing to accomplish a task. But tools like that exist. Use them. If you're someone who's at that point where you have a goal, you might know the general idea of how to get from point A to point B, but the stuff in between just flies over your head. That's my recommendation.
Running by using some self-motivation tricks. And here's a few. First, remind yourself what drives you, why you're doing this, and what the end goal is. Next, remind yourself what you enjoy about your work. Third, challenge yourself to see how much work you can do in the next hour, and race against the clock as if you have an essay that's due in 1 hour and you haven't started. Because you know what they say, procrastination is the best motivation. So why not just give yourself your own time limit? And finally, make work into a habit by doing it every day around the same time, and by making it part of a bigger routine. For example, a lot of people have a morning routine of wake up, shower, breakfast, gym. Or they have an evening routine of come home, change clothes, eat food. And if you just stick a work session into these built-in routines, then eventually it'll feel weird not to do work. And what better motivator is there than not wanting to feel weird? But having said all this, you also don't have to start with motivation to get the cycle going. For example, if you wake up one day and you feel really unmotivated, like you don't want to do anything, just start working anyway. It can even be just 1 minute of work. Literally 1 minute. Maybe it's writing one sentence. Maybe it's reading one paragraph. Or cleaning one piece of furniture. Whatever it is, once you finish that bit of work, you're done. And you can go back to lying in bed and doing nothing.
Yeah, so this is a fantastic tip. I love this. Back years ago, when I used to research kind of the mechanics of productivity and the mechanics of success, specifically for college students, but in the different articles and the different studies that I used to research, they would also follow these college students who were successful in college and to see if they were successful outside of college, and they were using the exact same strategies. One thing that they mentioned the college students did, or the adults in this case, after they graduated, was even when they didn't feel like working, they forced themselves to work for at least a few minutes at a time. So eventually what I kind of learned is that there's this thing in economics called the J curve. I don't want to get super deep into like what it actually means when it comes to economics, but really what it comes down to is there's a point where something begins to dip, but if you keep at something over time, it'll increase. So it creates kind of this J curve. In productivity, or when you're trying to accomplish something, there might be a point where you're trying to work. Like say, for example, you're like this person in this video who's lying in bed, you don't feel like working. If you start to work for at least, the math that I came up with is about 5 to 10 minutes. Over about 5 to 10 minutes, you'll probably start here. You might dip a little bit in motivation, and you might struggle to like really put pen to paper, so to speak. You might struggle to write something or to start doing the thing you want to do. If you're trying to shoot a video, you might sit in front of the camera but not say anything. That's fine. If you give it about 5 to 10 minutes, you'll dip, but then you'll start to come up and you'll start to kind of get some momentum anyway, even though you're not really producing much. And then over time, because you're kind of forcing yourself to put in effort, you'll start to actually see results, and you'll start to get that positive boost of motivation. For anyone that's ever like worked out, you may experience this yourself, where you wake up, you don't feel like going to the gym, you force yourself to go to the gym, and maybe for the first like set or two, you're kind of like, going through the motions, you're kind of winging it, you're not really feeling it. But then after that third set, or after that first workout, you start to feel good, the music starts to kick in, you start to get that boost of motivation, and you end up feeling more energetic than on a normal day when you did want to go to the gym and you weren't fighting yourself. Does that make sense? Like your worst gym day ends up being your best gym day because you kind of underwent this J curve and you forced yourself to go through that dip to get to that peak. Hopefully that all makes sense. But yeah, highly recommend what he's suggesting. If you don't feel like working, it's a skill that you kind of need to learn, where you have to differentiate between your brain tricking you into not working versus you genuinely being exhausted. It's a fine line between the two. It takes time to kind of feel the nuances and feel the difference. But when you're in this section where your brain's telling you not to try to work, when your brain's telling you that you're exhausted, just try it anyway. See how things go. Give it a few minutes. 5 to 10 minutes is that sweet spot. Usually about 5 minutes in, you'll reach that dip, and then after about the 6, 7, 8 minute mark, you'll start to come up and you'll feel a lot more productive. So try that out. See how that goes for you.
But chances are you probably won't want to go back to doing nothing, because finishing that one task will almost always give you enough motivation to do the next task, and that motivates you more, and before you know it, the cycle is running at full speed. And this is the secret. Don't wait for motivation. Start working now and get motivated as you work. It's said that students at Oxford University in England spend at least 40 hours a week studying, which means that even on those days with no motivation, they still have to wake up and go study for 6 to 8 hours. And they're not sitting in bed telling themselves, "Come on, walk in, mate, you gotta do 7 hours of revision today." Because that's a huge task they don't have the motivation for. What they actually do is wake up and think, "You alright, mate, I reckon I'll have a crack at a bit of work right now, innit?" And 12 hours later, somehow, they finish 2 textbooks, written 4 essays, and colonized 78 countries. Because getting stuff done is what motivates you when nothing else will. But of course, the cycle can't go on forever. Things like tiredness, confusion, boredom, anxiety, and distractions are all things that make the cycle less and less efficient. But the good news is that you can deal with all of these. And one way to tackle them all at the same time is to just take a break and go for a walk. Especially if you go outside, a walk will give you some extra energy. A walk helps you collect your thoughts and plan out your next move. It gives you something to do that's not work. It calms you down when you're anxious, and during a walk, you can take in all your surroundings and allow your mind to wander now so that you don't need distractions later. But besides walking, here's how you can deal with each problem. Tiredness, ideally sleep, but a nice Americano will do. Confusion, have a to-do list, or at least come up with a plan of what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. Boredom, background music can help, but one thing that works way too well and pretty much never fails is switching up the location you work from, or even...
Yeah, so just wanted to do a quick interjection. Changing your location, it sounds so simple, and it is simple, but it's super, super impactful when it comes to you being productive. It's very underrated how much simply changing where you are will impact your overall sense of like boredom or your overall productivity. Quick story: years ago, like I may have mentioned this earlier in this video, I used to work at I used to work at a real estate brokerage, and I'd often try to force myself to work in the office, mainly because they had good Wi-Fi and the computers were fast, and it was very nice to be in. But after a few weeks of me working at the brokerage like consistently, I'd find my productivity like waning. Even though I scheduled things out, even though I had a planner, even though I knew exactly what I wanted to do, I'd still find myself like procrastinating, just sitting there, like not wanting to do the things that I intended to do. And really what it came down to is I was just bored. And I remember one day I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to switch it up a little bit. I'm going to try to work at Starbucks. I worked at Starbucks, boom, got so much done. Like time felt super short. Or I should say an hour felt super long. Like an hour felt like 4 hours. I got so much done in like a short span of time. And I would do that until I got that exact same boredom feeling. And once I did that, I'd switch it up. I'd go to a different city entirely, take a quick drive, go to a different city, find another Starbucks or find another bookstore or some other place where there's Wi-Fi to just work. And I would do this consistently to keep myself motivated. Because if you're in one environment for too long, this isn't true for everybody, but for a lot of people, you're going to find yourself getting bored. And so what you do to switch up, in order to not be bored, you just switch things up and you go somewhere else. Doing that alone will help you like 10x your productivity because you're able to work more consistently, which is ultimately what leads to you. It's one of the main 3 factors that leads to you achieving your goals. So very good tip right here. Change your location as often as you need to so that way you don't get bored.
Facing a different direction. You can honestly work from even the most nonsensical of locations. but be warned that people might look at you weird. Doesn't matter though, because it's fun. Anxiety. The best you can do is ask yourself some questions. What am I most worried about? Is it reasonable? Will this thing I'm worried about matter in the long run? And what can I control? For example, if you have a biology test coming up, you might feel too anxious to study. Why? Because you're worried you might fail anyway. Is this reasonable? No, because studying always helps. Will this matter in the long run? No, because the 2 hours you spend studying now is not that much time in the grand scheme of things. And what can you control? Obviously, you can study, and even if you do fail, you can always just draw over your grade and change it to an A. And lastly, distractions. According to many books, distractions are the enemy to deep, productive work, and they also stop you from reaching a state of flow. And the best way to stop this is to simply take your phone, put it on silent, and put it in another room, or just hide it somewhere. This is way better than just turning off your notifications, and I personally...
My hacks to focusing: put away your phones, put it on grayscale mode, put it on airplane mode, put it on silent mode, put it in a completely different room, lock it away until you're finished working, or at least until the time that you gave yourself to work has expired. A lot of people are distracted by their phones. A lot of people are distracted by social media, but one of the other big things that I see people get distracted from, this is true of a lot of my clients, they get super distracted by phone calls and text messages. Stop letting people call you and distract you from whatever it is you're doing. Just because they call you does not mean you need to answer the phone. I do not know why people have this notion that if someone calls me, I must answer. Let people, if they really want to talk to you, they can leave a voice note, they can text you and you can get back to them when you're free, or they can schedule time to speak with you. People think it's too formal. It's not formal. Your time is valuable. It should mean a lot to you. Treat it that way. Don't let people just have your time because they want it. Super big. It agitates me because a lot of people I see fall victim to this, and they're like, "Oh, I'm not getting much done." It's like, well, how many phone calls have you taken over the past day that were not productive, that did not lead to you achieving your goals? Oh, then you see the planner and it's like, oh, well, I woke up and I talked to my parents for 3 hours, and then this guy called me trying to sell me something like the software, and then one of my buddies called me, and then someone else texted me, and I had this long back and forth text stream, and then I got on Facebook and I started debating this guy because I got mad about politics. You're wasting time. None of these things are productive. None of these things lead to you achieving whatever goals you have. Stop doing them, or at the very least, drastically reduce the amount of time you spend doing them. I'm telling you right now, that's probably one of the biggest focus killers, one of the biggest productivity killers I see for most people. Phones. Put them away until you're done doing whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. Trust me on this.
I miss anything because no one calls me in the first place. Anyway, I'm collecting donations in the form of subscribes to fund the next video.
I like that. So that was a great video by, I think the channel is Easy Actually. Highly recommend checking out more of their videos. If you enjoyed this video, and by the way, if you're someone who struggles with productivity, if you're someone who kind of has an idea of what they want to do, but despite watching YouTube content like this, despite reading productivity books, despite maybe knowing conceptually what you should be doing but not applying it, we have the solution for you. At Productivity Accelerator, we're offering currently a 1-month free trial where we help you achieve whatever goal you have in 1 month. If you don't achieve it, then we front the cost and we pay for it. Does that make sense? So if you're interested, click the link below to sign up. It's a 1-month trial. There's no risk. You pay nothing. If you don't achieve what you want to achieve, we pay for it. If you do, then you pay us. So you only pay when you get results. If you're interested, click the link below. By the way, if you want to donate, Easy actually made a good suggestion. You can subscribe to his channel, and you can also subscribe to this channel as well if you want to be free with those donations. But until next time, I hope to see you in the next video. Hope you enjoyed this video. Peace out. Bye.